Hi and welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In today's tutorial we'll be using Blender 2.8 to create some mountains and a sunrise. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up Blender and we'll click on General like usual. We'll click on this cube and delete it. So hit the delete key, select the light source, hit the delete key, go to File, Save As, give your file a sensible name and save that somewhere. And the first thing we want to do is go to Edit and Preferences, and if you haven't already done this, click on Add-ons here, scroll down and you need to turn on this one here, Add Mesh ANT Landscape. So make sure that one is turned on, then close down this window, press Shift A and insert a landscape here. And when you click on it, make sure you don't click anywhere else because you need to click on this option here and you'll see these options pop up. In the drop down menu we want to select, let's see, terrain, where are you? Large terrain here. So we select that one and that creates this large terrain like this, and we want to make sure the subdivisions here are set to 256 and 256, and then you can left click outside and you've got your landscape done, right? But we're going to modify this landscape slightly as well. Okay, so let's click on this landscape, go into edit mode and you'll see all the vertices here, and what we want to do is left click outside so that we're selecting nothing, press number 7 so you can see it from the top view. You can see our cameras here, and what we want to do is randomly select some vertices here. So just hold down the shift key and just select across the line, sort of like this, something like this, maybe a few at the front and a few more at the back over here, but not too many, just a few of them, right? So we've got like normal land here, and then we'll have our sort of more of our landscape mountains over here. And what we want to do is click on the option here for proportional editing, and then go into the drop down and select sharp here, sharp. So we'll click that, and then we're going to press G to grab and then the letter Z to lock it on the Z axis, and we're going to move our mouse up and then rotate it downwards so we get these mountain ranges like this, something that looks a bit like this. So if we left click and then go back into object mode, now we can see we've got these ridges of these mountains, and that will allow us to cast some sunlight from the back. So let's go to File, Save. Okay, so we need to add a light source into this scene. So if we go into the render view, you can see it's very dark. So let's press Shift and A and we'll go to Light and add a sunlight. So we've got a sunlight here. Let's press G to grab it, then Z, and we'll move it above the surface here, something like this. And then we can go to the light source and we'll leave these settings as they are for now. We might modify them slightly later. Really what we want to do is give this land some material. So it's called landscape at the moment, which is quite suitable. Let's copy that name and go to the material, click new material, and then paste in that name landscape here. And then we want to change its color. We want to make it much darker, right? Something around close to black, really, something very, very dark, around this sort of shade here. And then we want to go into the shading view and click on the render view, and let's just move around here like this, and we want to add a bump map to this. So let's just zoom in a little bit, and we want to increase the roughness. We want to set it a little bit higher, so the rocks are going to be rough, right? So we want to set them a bit higher. Let's press Shift and A and go to add a bump map, and let's just move down here. We want to connect this bump map to the normal here, then press Shift A and add a texture, and we want to add a noise texture, and then just drag that to the height here, and we want to increase the noise texture and increase the detail until we get sort of like a rocky type surface. So if we go back into our layout, we can see the land like this. We're going to improve that a little bit more in a moment. Okay, so next thing we want to do is add a modifier. So let's click on the modifier, click add modifier, and then go to displace, and then set the strength really low to 0.1, and then click on new for here for the new texture. And then we're going to click on the texture options here, and in the drop down we're going to select distorted noise, and in the first option here we're going to select original Perlin here, and then set the value all the way up to 10. So it's going to just distort some of this texture here just to make it a bit more random rather than being uniform. Okay, I think it would be smart for us to set up our camera. So we're in a pretty good scene, a pretty good view at the moment. Let's just go into solid view and we can see things a little bit more clearly here, because we're going to have some light shining from behind these mountains, right? So we really want to pick sort of an angle what you like. So maybe something like this. Around here we've got the bigger mountains, and these ones over here we can have our sunlight flashing from here. So it's really down to you what angle you want to pick. I want it to be quite low, something like this. I'm going to press Control Alt 0, and then that will place the camera there, Control Alt and 0. I'm going to click on the camera and go to the camera settings and set it to more of a wider focal length, right? Set it to something like 22mm, and then you can see, we can see more of the landscape here. We can see the mountains more. And I want to go to its, in fact, one thing you can do is go to Edit Preferences and go to Key Map. And inside the key map here, type in fly. And when you type in fly, you're going to see this option here. And then click here and then press Shift and F. And that will allow you to add a hotkey to walk and fly. So when we close this, to move the camera now, we can press Shift and F. And we can move the camera up slightly or move it down slightly. I just want to move it up slightly. And then we can press G to grab it and move it down a bit to something like this sort of angle. So you can experiment with that and get your camera kind of positioned where you think it's going to be good for your scene. Let's go to File, Save. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is add a light source. So I'm going to press Shift and A, and I'm going to add a light which will be a spotlight. So the spotlight is here. Let's press G to grab it and move it up. And we want to place that behind this mountain here, somewhere behind it. So let's just press G to grab it and move it down a bit. And we can see it sitting in front of the mountain. So really what we need to do is move it backwards. Let's move it backwards so it's behind the mountain now. You can see that it's sitting behind it. So you can just adjust that slightly. We'll move it down slightly and let's move it to the side. Really I want it to be kind of shining from around here, like almost like at the midpoint of the camera, right? So this is the camera lens. You can see that if I click here, this is the camera, and our light source is sitting right behind this mountain here. And I want to bring it down a little bit, roughly around here. And then we want to rotate it so that light source is pointing towards the camera. So let's middle mouse click and zoom out a little bit. And the light source is pointing downwards at the moment. So we want to rotate it on the x-axis, the red line. So let's rotate it on the x and let's rotate it towards the camera, something like here. Then press 0 and we can rotate it on the y-axis and also rotate it on the z-axis to get it pointing towards the camera. You can try and get this line kind of pointing towards the camera, and then we can adjust that slightly later. Let's go to its settings and let's call this spotlight, let's call it sunshine, would be a good name for it. Let's click on it and then go to its settings, and we want to set its color to like an yellowy sort of orange, and we want to give it a lot of power, so we want to set it to around 20,000, believe it or not. So we hit enter there. Let's go to File, Save. Okay, so we've added our light source, so let's go into the shading options here, shading, and inside shading we want to go to world settings, and you need to zoom out a bit. So if you use your mouse wheel to rotate, you should see two nodes here. Just middle mouse click to move the nodes around, and then you can use your mouse wheel to zoom back in like this. And we'll press Shift and A, and we want to insert a volume scatter and connect that to here. And then in the density, we want to set it to 0.010, and then set this to 0.8. And if we go back to our layout, and if we turn on our render view, you'll see this sunlight being casted, right? Using this volumetric lighting now. So what we want to do is just position our light source where it's just on the top edge of this mountain, so it's casting this nice light. So we can click on the sunshine here, and what we'll do is press G press G to grab the sunlight and just drag it so that it sits like around sort of here. This is entirely your choice where you position it, right? But you really want it to be like even somewhere up here will be cool, but I think towards the center is best, and somewhere around here sort of, so it's casting this light going out. And you can modify that just by pressing G to grab that light source and just moving it to where you think it looks good. So something like this. I really want to move the camera position as well, and we're going to get rid of this light sort of shining here as well. We'll deal with that in a moment. So let's just move our camera a little bit. So let's click on the camera, and we can press G to grab it, so we can move our camera around a little bit, try and get it positioned in a better place, maybe somewhere around sort of like here. I think nice and centered out like this. And then we'll press Shift and F, and we want to raise the camera up a bit. So let's move it upwards, and then press G to grab it and move it down to somewhere like around here. I think will be good. And then with this surface here, let's click on the land surface, go to its material, and we want to bring down the specular a bit. Just bring it down a bit, and you can adjust the roughness depending on how much light you want shining on these rocks. But I don't really want a lot. I want it to be like almost like nighttime when the sun is just about to rise. This is kind of the idea behind it. So you can see that here. Let's go to the options here, the render options, and in here the render, let's set it to 128 and the viewport to 128. That's just going to improve the lighting in the viewport, so you can see you can just see the lighting a lot better now basically. Let's click back on this sunshine and we'll press G to grab it. And you can move it around a little bit, and you could animate this. You could animate that light source using keyframes, and it could be up like this, and it can shine on these rocks like this, right? But I want to set it to somewhere around here, and maybe we'll change its color slightly. Let's click on the color. You can go all crazy sci-fi, right, and do purple stuff and do like blues and create some really nice shades, but I think we're going to go for more of a sort of natural orange sort of sunlight color, and we're going to set this value up a bit more because I don't think it's strong enough. Let's set it to 25,000, and maybe let's see, we could turn down the specular so there's less shine on these rocks, and the radius, it's not really going to make much difference, is it? So we could increase it just to give it a bit more radius, but I don't think you need to do that really. In these size options, we can just pretty much leave them as they are. I think we'll leave these as pretty much close to their defaults. You can click show cone, and that'll give you sort of a different style of an effect. So if you want to do something a bit more creative, something like that, sometimes it's worth turning off the renders, turn off the overlays, and you can see what's going on. But we don't really need the cone to show, we don't need that. But what we will do is go here and turn on the bloom, and that will just give a bit more power to this light. And now it looks like there's some sort of canyons, and there's these rocks and these light sources coming up right over the mountain ridges. That's kind of the idea behind this tutorial. Let's go to file, save. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is change the background color. So you've got a few options. You can either use a real photograph, or you can just change the shade and color. So at the moment it's kind of set to this default gray. So when we go to the world settings, you'll see it's gray here. So you can increase it and have it really bright. You can change that color and make it like a sky blue, something like this. You can do all sort of crazy sci-fi stuff if you want it to be purple and whatnot, depending on what sort of scene you want to create. You can bring down that color just to have it like a shade of blue. So you can imagine the sunrise is coming and you've got this shade of blue here. But I want to show you how to actually add a photograph into the background as well, which will be quite interesting. So let's go to file, save as, and I'm on version 3. I've been saving a few versions here. So I'm going to save this as version 4. You're probably still on version 1, but you're saving your work as you go. So you should call yours version 2 or whichever version you like. Let's go to save. So we've got this version, and now we want to create one with an image in the background. To do that, we really need to open up our web browser and go to Unsplash. In fact, we'll go to another website called Pixabay. So we'll go to Pixabay. It's like Unsplash, loads of different free photographs. We'll expand this for the moment, and what we'll do is look for something like let's look for stars, right? So we've got all these different star backgrounds that we can place into the background of our image, and some of them have got like these lighthouse sort of beam. Maybe something like this would be pretty cool with this light going out, but we'll pick something maybe like, let's see what will work well. Maybe something like this, let's say, for example. So let's click on it, and we'll click free download, and I'm going to select the highest resolution possible. You will need to sign up to an account to download the highest resolution. You can sign up using Facebook or whichever service you want, but you want to try and download the highest version. So let's just create a folder in here and call it images, and I'm going to drag and drop that image into here, and I want to find one more. So I want to show you how to switch to a different background quite quickly. So maybe we'll pick something, let's see, let's try, that one was blue, right? So let's try this red one here, and we'll click download the highest resolution and download that one as well, and we'll drag and drop that into the folder. So we've got these two images. Now inside Blender, what we're going to do is go to edit preferences, and in the add-ons, as default this should already be enabled, but if I type in plane, if I type in the word plane, plane, you'll see there's an option here for the add-ons, import export images as planes. So just make sure that's enabled, and then press Shift and A and go to images and select image as planes here. And then we'll go into the image folder and we'll select one of these two. So let's select this one here and click import. And what we need to do is turn our overlays on so we can see the image here. And we want to drag that image so it's positioned behind this light source, because it needs to be in the background, right? So let's just middle mouse click and we can see the image here. Let's just press G to grab it and move it backwards. G then Y, so we move it on the Y axis. Let's move it back behind this light source and then press 0 so you can see what your camera sees. Let's press G to grab this as well and try and move it towards the center, somewhere like the center here. And let's press S to scale it, and let's scale it right out. And then we might want to rotate this a little bit, so let's click on it and let's press R to rotate and then Z, and we can just rotate this around and try and square it up a little bit, and we can probably scale it down a bit more, right? Let's just go to its properties, and on Z we can set that to 0. In fact, we wanted to change that, right? We can actually rotate it from here. Let's just try and get it facing flat, something around here, right? Roughly these sort of settings. And you can see it's quite dark, right? These stars, and you may want that's fine, but if you want to change the brightness of this image, let's click on it, go to the material, and inside the material we need to change the shader from diffuse to emission. And when we change it to emission, we can change the strength here to affect the how light this picture shows in the background, right? So we can set it to a higher value, and then you'll get these stars in the background. And then you can just press G to grab it, and you can move it around to position that background however you want. Now if you want to change the background, so we downloaded the red version, right, just now. So let's click on that image. Let's click on this image, go into the shading, and then go to the object data. So this is the setup for that background. Let's just go into our render view and press 0 here so we see what the camera sees right now. And in here, this option here, we want to click the open folder button and select the other image and click open. And now you've got the red background with the red stars, which personally looks much better. So let's go back to the layer, and you can see that here. And sometimes it's worth just, this is your camera, right? Here sometimes it's worth clicking on that and pressing S and just scaling it down a little bit more, and then you can press G to grab it and you can move it to like wherever you want, maybe around sort of this sort of position. And we can zoom back in now, and let's go to file, save as, and save as version 5, and maybe we'll click on that and bring down the power of it a little bit. Something around here I think looks better. And then maybe we'll make this light source a slightly different color. So let's click on the sunshine, let's go to its color here in the object data here, and we can set it to maybe quite a reddy sort of orange color. And you can power this light up more if you want. You can set it to a higher value, so we can set it to like 35,000, and then you'll get more of a sort of sunlight beam coming out. If we click on that light source, the sunshine, and just press G to grab it and move it down slightly to around here, then we'll get a slightly different effect as it's hitting those those mountains from behind. It's going to change the way that this volumetric light gets pushed out, right? So you can experiment with that. You can have it quite high, you can have it quite low, you can have it start right down at the bottom. You could animate it and have it set to a null value, and then as it rises up you could then increase that sunlight and then do some sort of sunlight scene like this. So I'll leave you to experiment with that. Let's set it to around here, which I like this sort of shadow coming down here. I think that's a pretty good angle. And this background, I might hide it for now. Let's just hide the background, and I might just stick with this plain blue color. I kind of like this, to be fair, rather than using the images, but it's entirely your choice. That's kind of optional. In this drop down here, I need to click on the render view and then click here, because if I don't want to show this background, I need to turn it off in the render view and the viewport as well, here and here. So let's go to file, save, and we do a test render. So I'll press F12. This is going to take about 30 seconds to render probably, so I'm going to, or actually even quicker than that. I thought it would take a bit longer, but Here you've got your mountains, here you've got your blue background, your sky background, and now you've got the sun rays. And you can go and animate this in some way. You can twist the camera around, maybe zoom into the sunlight, zoom out from it. You can move the light source itself, and you can make some really nice creative animations using this technique. So I'll leave you to go and experiment with that. If you want to go to File, Save As, and click the plus sign, click Save, you can click on this background and go sci-fi, right? So you could change it to like a sort of dark red sort of color here, something quite dark, or you could brighten that up if you want, but I think something like around here, quite dark color. And then you can click on the light source, or click here, sunshine, and you can go all sci-fi on it and change that to like a purple or a blue, something like that. And then you can click on the land itself, and that's set to like a grey color, right? So if you click on that, you can go to its color and change it, and you can brighten it up or reduce that and change its shade as well to reflect your light in your scene. So now you've got this sort of sci-fi mountains just with a few simple mouse clicks, right? So we look at that version as well. So that looks pretty cool as well. So I'll leave you to go and experiment with all of this. I'll go to File, Save. Let's minimize this and we'll close this down. That's the end of this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next DCV web tutorial.